So Mark made an announcement. Parth Vakil came in for an investment into Lucid. You know, Parth and I have been talking for the last, ever since the last conference in Newport. We spent a tremendous amount of time together talking about addiction, talking about how addiction has affected India, other countries, and we just had a general discussion around sobriety and addiction. Not even going much into the business model, because when we look at you know, what are we looking for in this next growth phase of Lucid, and who do we want on our cap table in the next 30 years? Parth's that type of person. We then dove heavily into the business model, and we spent hours and hours and hours going over the business model and all the verticals that we're in and that we're going into. And about a week and a half ago, we came to an agreement, and I couldn't be happier with Parth and everything that he represents as an individual, everything he represents as a sophisticated investor and family office, and I am just elated to have him joining a part to be a big part of the Lucid family. You know, it's so interesting. One of my favorite books is called The Hard Thing About Hard Things, that was written by Ben Horowitz. And he talks about, this was before he sold his first business, which was how he got his resources to become a venture capitalist. And one of the lessons that he always talked about was the struggle. And always playing to a market of one, meaning 1,000 people would tell him no, and he learned many, many years ago someone saying play to a market of one. In other words, you're always looking for that one person that's going to change and say yes, and and open to other things. And so in Lucid's case, it's a very interesting dynamic, because a lot of people will want to get behind Lucid from the standpoint of they see our growth trajectory and they want to take advantage of Lucid from a capitalistic standpoint, which is fine, but those are not really the people that we need. Well, the type of people that we need and want are people that are attached to both the bottom line and the double bottom line, which is why we're doing what we're doing. And so I've been coming to these conferences a long time, screaming from the rooftops about social impact. And then when you have a company that's perfectly aligned in such a way that the more you grow, the more lives you save, that's when you have what I believe is the perfect company, where you align purpose and profit, you align bottom line with double bottom line. So we were looking for that right person, and Parth's that kind of guy. Well, it wouldn't have happened without 361. 361 is a family, and so if you think about relationships are all about having that familial, authentic element that is so important, because business is about relationships, and that's what 361 is about. I go to conferences all over, and I always tell people the same thing when they ask what separates 361 from the other conferences, and I always say one word: family. And if you think about addiction, how do we heal from not cure, but how do we heal alcoholism? Through connecting with other alcoholics. It's what we call the power of community, right? And so when we have the power of community, enables us to heal. When we have a power of the 361 community, you're able to bring incredible people together, right? And amazing things happen. And that's something that is within the DNA of the 361 firm that I have not seen anywhere else. And what's interesting is I was very fortunate to have been a part of the very early stages of 361 many, many years ago, before COVID, and saw kind of the genesis of what Mark was trying to create. If people are going to invest in you, I used to be on the other side of the table 30 years ago, and we invest, and we always invested in the individual. The product or the service has to, be worth its weight. It's got to carry water. But at the end of the day, if we didn't have belief in the entrepreneur, we would never put our dollars behind the entrepreneur. So what does that mean? It means you need to show up at these events. You come, that you get to know people more and more and more, and eventually it establishes that level of trust. That is business. Business is all about relationships. The moment that you make it transactional, is the moment you lose. And that's where I see the power of the 361 community. And I'll put the power of the 361 community against any conference out there because of that family element, that community element. So when you're growing a company, you need capital, and the other part of growing a company is strategic partnerships. And so when you can leverage the exposure of communities, when you talk about addiction, every single person in this conference has a family member, a friend, someone who's been affected by addiction. And so you always want to leverage the power of connections, the power of strategic relationships, and that's how things grow and achieve what we call network effects. So it's not always about the capital, it's about who you know and how you could put together companies that may be able to leverage one another's exposure and presence in the market. Yeah, so we're in the United States and Canada now, and now the next territories would be Central and South America, followed by Europe, followed by most likely New Zealand and Australia, and then we push out to some other demographics from there.
I see.
Because the reason why we can't open tomorrow is there's different GDPR compliance. If it's Europe, there's CCPA compliance. If it's California, the way in which you manage and discard data is always different when you open up different territories. That's number one. Number two is if you're talking about dating, you have to fill up a lot of users in a small area. And in order to do that, it requires capital. So if you open up a country, you may need $3 to $5 million to open up one country or one, major demographic. Yeah. So when Yasmin started creating the AI, we're huge advocates for AI because I know the power of AI because of the patterns that we can recognize to predict relapse in people, right? And so when it comes to investment, Yaz was showing a demonstration on how the digital AI works at 361, where you can match an investor, let's say, that's looking for that has a certain investment criteria with somebody that's looking for that kind of capital. So it's a great way to leverage the power of AI in order to maximize the 361 experience.